Welcome to the Main Basketball Rankings podcast. I am your host, basketball data nerd Lucas McNally. Well, it is official. We have made it to basketball season. We did it. We survived the vast wilderness of not having basketball season. It's been way too long, but basketball season is here. There are tryouts today. It's going to be awesome. And there's basketball all year round. There's AAU, there's the Coney Summer League, there's fall ball, there's all sorts of stuff. But really nothing beats those 18 nights playing for your home school. Then the tournament, Bangor, Portland, and Augusta. It's very exciting, and it's going to be a great season. I have lots of things planned for this season. Hopefully try a few new things, like, for example, this podcast, which didn't really exist last season, and I'm trying out this idea of doing a version of the newsletter as a podcast, because I'm thinking maybe people would just listen to it on the way to work or school or whatever. And I'm trying to grow this because I think it's a viable thing, and everything I read says that podcasting is the future, and who am I to disagree? A couple things. Try us today. If you're a football player, you're obviously transitioning, and maybe you're a little beat up because, and it's different muscles and all of that. And someone asked me on Blue Sky if teams still do a Midnight Madness, and I'm sure somebody does a Midnight Madness, but I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. It's always very fun. When I was in college, we did it for the college team that I was the broadcaster for. So if anyone does a Midnight Madness, please reply, put it in the comments. Tell me that they do it, who does it, what it's like. If anyone's got video from it, it would be very cool, and would love to see if that's still a thing that the teenagers and the youth do in 2024, or if you're all way too cool for that. So, yeah, I'm recording this right after the Chiefs-Bills game, and everyone's flabbergasted that the Chiefs didn't win. Like, it was totally sustainable to be down in every single game and then come back in some miraculous way. And that was going to work against a good team, but whatever. Okay, so before we transition fully into basketball and start season previewing it and all of that, we've got a little bit of football to take care of. We had the regional finals this weekend, and 2 gold ball games, so we'll get to that. I went to Hamden for the Winslow Foxcroft game and Medomak Hermon game. So Foxcroft, obviously, they're there every year. It seems like they're in the gold ball game every year. They beat Winslow last year in the semifinals. Winslow shuffled their offensive line. They'd lost 4 straight games, and then they thought, this isn't working, and they moved some guys around on their offensive line. And I don't know how many teams. I don't really have a great grasp of the history of football in the state, but I don't know how many teams have won a regional title with 4 losses on their schedule, and especially with 4 losses in a row. I can't imagine that's a very long list. So they were a pretty sizable underdog to Foxcroft, who, like I said, seems to be there every year. Foxcroft also beat them in the semifinals last year. So it was 7-0 at the half, which is a pretty good number if you're Winslow. They weren't really moving the ball very much, so I don't know how much the offensive line shuffle was helping, but they were definitely doing well defensively. And then, if you're going to try to win one of these games where you're a sizable underdog, you've got to have something break your way. And on the opening kickoff of the second half, Foxcroft fields it. They're running. The guy's trying to make a couple more yards. I'd already hit stop on recording video because I thought the play was over. Ball pops loose. Winslow scoops it up. They run it in. 7-7. Holy cow. And then Foxcroft just sort of marches down. They get a 40-yard touchdown run. Then Winslow goes 3-and-out, and I'm just a basketball guy, but it didn't look like the best idea of that sequence of play calling, and I was not the only one who thought that on Media Row. They go 3-and-out. Foxcroft comes back down. They score again, and all of the momentum that you had there, gone, and that's the game. And Foxcroft is back in the state game. They will play Wells. And so after the game, I spoke to Foxcroft head coach Danny White, and here's that. All right, Coach White, congratulations on the big win.
Thank you.
Regional champions. So after halftime, the fumble,
Yep.
Winslow ties it. What's the message on the sideline there?
Yeah, I mean, it's our response and how we handle adversity. That's competition. Those things happen. They took advantage of it. It was a break, and we needed to respond. So the message was like, hang on to your fundamentals, hang your hat on the basics of the game, and understand that we need to go back and just do what we do. And we started to lean on them at the line of scrimmage and falling forward for 4. And then once march down the field and score, then we got to stop. So we got the answer that we needed in the moment. Because certainly that was a big play in the game.
This is a really young Foxcroft team. It's not your big brother's Foxcroft Academy team. How do you get these guys to this point at this age?
Yeah, I mean they believe in the process. They believe in what we do. And then they just follow the footsteps of the guys in front of them. The guys in front of them have won. And they've shown them the right way how to do things and how to practice and how to prepare, and so that we put ourselves in position to win when it gets cold out.
So you got Wells next week. Have you taken a chance to think ahead to that yet, or is it one game at a time?
Not really. I mean, they're a tremendous team and a tremendous program, and we got a lot of work to do to get to Saturday and get ourselves ready to put ourselves in position to put our best foot forward. But no, it's a one game at a time approach, because you got to get there first.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There's one thing he said in there that really stuck out to me is that these guys have been there. They haven't been there before, but their older brothers have, and the guys ahead of them have, and just the experience of being in that sort of environment. And that's why a lot of these good programs stay good, is because the feeder system is not scared of the moment, because they're used to the moment, even if they haven't played in the game. All right, so moving on to Medomak and Hermon. This is Medomak's 3rd straight regional game. Hermon had a year off, and they had 2 in a row prior to that. So these are definitely some programs that, as young as these 2 programs are, they're used to being there, and they're not confused, not scared, not going to be intimidated by the moment. This is the game that anyone you talk to, you would go, the stats are all even. The model has it even. The model had it as a less than a 1-point game, and actually started on Medomak on Friday. And then on Saturday, something shifted it to Hermon by a half a point. Not 100% sure what did that. I think it might have been the Levitt game. Might have been something. It was something sort of downstream that shuffled the numbers a little bit, but that just tells you how close they were, in that, it was something very small that switched the line on this game. And so anyone you talk to, they'd go, I don't know, I think it's going to be close, and it's going to come down to something weird, or whoever gets a fluky play or whatever. So Hermon, you can clearly see their strategy in the game. They are all in on Jaden Ruiz, who's Medomak's freshman running back, who's seemingly, has had a big second half of the season. Yes, freshman, you don't really expect very much from them. He didn't do much in the first matchup early in the year, where this is in Waldoboro, where Hermon was up 14-0. Then Medomak scored to make it 14-8, and then Medomak spent the rest of the game trying to score again and just couldn't cash it in. I think they fumbled inside the 20 on their final drive. So first quarter scoreless, goes really fast, crazy fast quarter. Medomak can't get anything going. Hermon can get a little bit going, but it's a lot of, feeling people out, trading punches. Hermon is able to cash one in. The name is escaping me. Hold on. Let me find it. Max Hopkins. Sorry. Max Hopkins scores a touchdown and make it 6-0. The 2-point conversion fails. And then we get down to the end of near the end of the half. Hermon's driving. It looks like they're probably going to run out of time. Maybe not. They haven't really thrown the ball at all. They start throwing. They complete a couple passes, get a lot more yardage than they've been getting. And all of a sudden they're in the red zone with under a minute to play. They get down, I believe, I'm trying to remember this sequence correctly. I think they get down to the 1, and then there's a penalty for something. I think a legal procedure or something. It backs them up to the 6. Anyway, so they're at the 6, under 10 seconds to play. They run the ball, which is obviously risky. They might have had a time for 2 throwing plays, but they go with the running play. maybe catches Medomak a little bit offsides, a little on their heels. Hopkins scores again as time expires. He just barely gets in the end zone. And now you're 12-0 at the half, and that's going to end up being a big play. Hermon scores again on the first. They have the first possession of the third quarter. They score, and then Medomak does something interesting they haven't done all year. They put Gabe Lash in at quarterback. Gabe Lash is not a quarterback. He's the wide receiver. He's the defensive player in the defensive back. He's their key defensive back. He's their key defensive player in basketball as well. So they move him to quarterback, and all of a sudden they've got a dual threat there, and Hermon can't spend all their energy on Ruiz, and Medomak moves pretty quickly down the field. It changes the game, and they had tried this once during the first half, and Lash had sort of a direct snap sort of situation is what it looked like, and Lash ripped off like a 40-yard run, but it got brought back by a flag, and so they go to it full time in the second half. Medomak goes down the field pretty quickly. Lash scores. Then Hermon fumbles on the next possession. Ruiz, with 6 seconds left in the third quarter, takes a handoff, just plows over a kid. Like, it was right in front of us on press row, and I would have had a video of it, but my phone was dying. And we all sort of looked at each other like, whoa, what was that? And he just leveled the kid. They score. All the momentum's out on Medomak's side of the field. The field is shifted. Holy cow, this game has completely changed. And then Medomak doesn't touch the ball again for 9.5 minutes. Yeah, 9.5 minutes. Hermon runs off one of the better drives you'll see from a high school football team. I don't think they converted a first down. I don't think they converted a second down. They converted, it seemed like nearly every third down. And it was third and long. And you just kept thinking, well, this is the one where Medomak's getting the ball back. And they would convert it. And they would get, it was 3rd and 5, they would get 5.5 yards. It's 3rd and 7, they would get 8 yards. It was 3rd and 1, they would get 18 inches, or whatever, not 18 inches. They would get barely enough. They would just barely, they'd bring out the chains a couple times. They go, oh my gosh, they just made it, whatever. And they just Medomak couldn't get their defense off the field. And they ground it out. And then the play of the game is Hermon's quarterback. It's 4th and 3. Let me find it here. Okay, 4th and 3 on Medomak 46. Ethan Curtis, Hermon's quarterback, is sort of rolling out to his right, away from me, so the side I was on. So his right, rolls to his right. He's kind of going to throw. He gets popped by a defender. Ball pops loose, and it just complete fluke lands in the arms of Hopkins, who is able to get it 4 yards to pick up the first down and continue the drive. That's the play that, they should have gotten the ball back. They nearly had a sack later in that drive. And Hermon ends up scoring on it. Hopkins gets his 4th touchdown. It's 2.5 minutes left at this point. Medomak hasn't touched the ball since scored on the final play of the third quarter. And then Medomak's able to race down because their offense is really clicking now. They run out of time. They have a few miscues inside the 5-yard line, and they end up not scoring. So 24-14, and Hermon is back in the Class C championship game, and they're going to play Freiburg. Now let's go to Hermon head coach Kyle Glant. So congratulations on the regional title. How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels great. I mean, it's amazing for Hermon. Our football program is young. I've been here 8 years, and it's just an absolute testament to our community, and the village, I call it, as back in football and wanting to do the things to get us where we are today.
So you get the big lead, and then Medomak comes back, scores 14 straight. What's the mood on the sideline?
I think it's just we've been here before. I think if you look back at our schedule, we played 2 overtime games. And we've been in tough situations this year. And our guys have just fought adversity. And I think when you have a schedule like we had, it prepares you for moments like that to kind of say, all right, it's not going our way. We got to fix it ourselves, self-evaluate, and just do something to put the game away, and they did.
Do you say anything specific to them on the sidelines for that?
No, I haven't had to coach hard at all this year. This group is just phenomenal. I haven't had to coach hard at all, and just pretty much keeping the energy up and get back to playing fundamental football and doing what we do, and we've been here before.
Talk about the importance of that touchdown at the end of the second quarter. Like, I think 6 seconds left, 4 seconds left, something like that. You scored that. That swings the game.
Yeah, we knew we were getting the ball out of the half. We wanted to put a 2-score lead on the board there, and try to just kind of, one last nail in the coffin, if you will, as we came out of the half. It's huge. I mean, swinging momentums, right? Like that game, Medomak Hermon games are swinging momentums. They're two tough football programs that aren't going to give up at any time, regardless of the score. So we knew we were trying to keep as much momentum for us as we could.
And then the game kind of went the way the regular season game went, where you got the big lead and they came back. But this time, talk about that fourth quarter drive. You ate up like 9.5 minutes.
Yeah, we've done a good job with that this year. Just chewing clock and ball security, and it was huge for us. I mean, when you're playing a team like that who is tough and mentally tough and physically tough, you got to try to keep the ball out of their hands, especially with the change with Gabe Lash going to quarterback. That just made a completely different game in the second half. We weren't really able to sell out to some of the stuff that we did in the first half, and we had to make really quick adjustments. So hats off to our defensive coordinator, Matt Farnham, for late in the third, early fourth, making those changes.
Yeah, because you really seemed like you sold out on Ruiz in the first half, and that was working really well for you, and then you kind of can't do that when Gabe Lash is back there running around.
Yeah, I'm not, truthfully, our theme all week was tackle 7. And that's a compliment to him. He's a ninth grader, a true 14-year-old ninth grader who's going to be a problem for years to come. And we knew, if we can go in and just tackle 7, I think we're going to be all right. So hats off to Medomak for making that change to Lash. And it kind of opened Ruiz up a little bit. And obviously Gabe had a great game in the second half for sure. And it was tough to tackle.
Have you put any thought into Freiburg?
Not at all. No, we try to take stuff week to week. So I guess we'll enjoy this tonight, and tomorrow I'll learn a lot about Foxcroft Academy.
All right, congratulations.
Awesome, thank you so much.
So they're going to be pretty sizable underdogs to Freiburg, I believe. I think that's kind of the consensus. I haven't run the model yet or anything, but that's probably where we're going to shake out. So down south, the other really interesting game of the day was Old Orchard Beach and Stearns. Stearns was favored by 19 by the model, which was a surprise. I thought it was going to be closer. This is a weird matchup. So OOB has had a dominant year, but they had a dominant year last year, and they played the easiest schedule in the state, and they played an easy schedule last year, and we all know what happened last year. OOB went into the state game and got destroyed, and so I think it's fair to say that there's quite a lot of skepticism there, and understandably so. And they haven't been as dominant this year as they were last year. So I think a lot of people thought Stearns could win that game or would win that game. A lot of people thought, Old Orchard Beach would win that game. And some people thought that game was close. And what everyone agreed was that it would not be low scoring. So I was fully ready for it to be an 8-6 final, which would have been hilarious. But OOB, to their credit, to Coach Plant's credit, they went in and they took care of business. They won 60-12, I think. Let's check that. 60-14. Sorry, 60-14. And they are your 8-man small school champions for the year, and they are going to take home another gold ball. It's been a great season for Stearns, and they just come up a little bit short. In the 8-man large, that was one that I think everyone had a better handle on what that was going to be, because Greeley and Mount Ararat had played earlier in the year. Greeley had won that game in what everyone seemed to say was a back and forth classic. 30-26, I think, was the score of that. And so you kind of thought, okay, we're going to get a close back and forth game. The model had the line at a little more than 4, and Greeley went out and just manhandled them. Michael Hoffer has a 4,500 word novella on that if you want to read it in Varsity Maine. But from what the parts of it I read, it just sounds like Greeley just took it to him, which that's a surprise. You see two teams play that close of a game that recently. You kind of think it's going to go kind of like that, similar to how the Hermon Medomak game went pretty much the same. But to have that big of a difference is certainly a surprise. Another game that didn't go as the way the regular season game went was Thornton Academy and Noble. Thornton Academy just put the hammer down on them, 57-29. So they're going to play Portland. Portland beat them, surprisingly, to most people, I think, that don't go to Portland High School. So that was a 14-7 win for Portland. So Thornton Academy is going to get a chance to avenge that loss this Saturday at Fitzy. I think I'm going to go to that. So our gold ball games for football, we have Thornton Academy Portland. Class B, we have Kennebuck and Falmouth. Class C, we have Freiburg and Hermon. And then in Class D, we have a rematch of Wells and Foxcroft Academy. And you might remember that the Wells Foxcroft Academy game last year was kind of weird. So that could be really interesting. If you don't remember, Foxcroft went up 21-0, something like that. And then Wells, and everyone thought Wells is over. And then they came all the way back, and Wells won the gold ball. So that's your football. And then football will be over, and everybody can get on the ice packs. And the players who also play basketball are going to have to retrain their muscles to the basketball muscles that they haven't been using. And hopefully they're not too banged up and are able to play basketball. So that's it for that. One more thing I want to talk about a little bit. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Is I was listening to a podcast that I listen to a lot. It's a Script Notes, which is a screenwriting podcast. And they were talking about communities, and this is definitely a community we have here, the Maine high school sports community. And they said they were talking about how one of the things, because I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't already know, is that the world has gotten kind of partisan and divided and messed up. And I think we can all disagree. You have different opinions on whose fault it is, but it's mostly cable TV, cable news. But it's not great. And then what thing he said, Craig Mazin, who wrote The Last of Us and Chernobyl and a couple other things, the Hangover movies, said is that there's not a lot of things left in the world, or at least in our country, that aren't screwed up by the hyper-partisanness of our society. And one of them is entertainment. It's TV shows, it's movies, things like that. There's some outlier stuff, but for the most part, we can all agree, oh, look, Oppenheimer, Batman, The Last of Us for a TV show. We all like Parks and Recreation. We all like The Office. We all like Seinfeld, things like that. We can all sort of agree on it. And there's some people out on the way wild fringes who will just get mad about everything in either direction. But the 80% of us who are in the normal part of the bell curve all sort of agree. Yeah, that's a good show. Yeah, all right, cool. We're all on board with that. But the other big thing that doesn't really get stoked by all this partisan nonsense is sports. And high school sports especially. I mean, we can all agree that the Celtics are awesome and that they're going to hopefully win the title. And even if we aren't all Celtics fans, if you're, a Heat fan for some crazy reason, we can all sort of get along in that way, even if it's, we're at each other's throats. And, I was listening to another podcast that they were talking about Cooper Flagg. The Ringer had this Cooper Flagg podcast, and should he be drafted first overall? And the answer is yes. And they were talking about how when you play street ball in like Rucker Park or in New York City, guys will go at each other and it'll get to the point of a fight, but then it won't be a fight because that's, where the street ball game escalates up to that level, and then it stops, and then the game is over, and you shake hands, and you're fine. And there's no actual risk there. And it's, after the game's over, you're friends because you play as hard as you can and you're friends. But so it's just this idea that the partisanness is what we do here with high school sports. Is one of the few oases from this nonsense that makes everything terrible. And so going forward and looking forward to this season, it's a thing to keep in mind is that this is a thing that we collectively have that can hold us together and not tear everybody apart. And I think we should enjoy that, and we should celebrate that, and we should do what we can to preserve that. And I don't think it needs a ton of preservation other than people being idiots. So, I just wanted to mention that. I thought that was a cool thing. And then similar to that, I don't know if you've noticed, but Twitter has become a cluster. It's become not great. And even before the election, it was not great. And when Elon Musk bought it, he, did all this weird stuff, and he fired a bunch of people. And so there's no content moderation team anymore. So it just turned into this cesspool of toxic nonsense and porn bots and ads and elevation of Elon Musk's really dumb jokes that are really stupid. And this thing where he believes anything anyone tells him, or anything he reads on the internet, he believes. So I think he might be my mother-in-law, because she seems to believe almost anything she reads on the internet. But anyway, Twitter is, for a while now, probably, a year, has become pretty unwieldy and more unwieldy. And it's harder and harder to get the simple engagement of, I want to see what's happening in the community and the world of the people I follow. And so for my main basketball rankings account, it's the high school basketball scene, and I want to see teams, updates, and players and coaches and all this stuff. And it's become harder and harder to do that. So it's become less and less feasible as a platform. So when everybody started to sort of transition to, especially after the election, Threads and more interestingly, Blue Sky. And I think that's very promising, because Blue Sky kind of has the vibes of Twitter before Twitter had to try to make money. And that was sort of the start of the problem, way before Elon Musk got involved, where they started selling ads and they started changing the feed. So it was more algorithmic, and it's feeding you things, and they're trying to get you to look at things that are going to piss you off and the whole thing. And before, it was just like, oh, hey, I wonder who won the Spruce Mountain Morse game. Let me see if I can find it. And now, good God, you can't find it. And even if the algorithm isn't doing that, you've got all of these spam things that are on Twitter and Facebook that are telling you they're going to show you the streaming scam site of this game and whatever. And so it's just this idea that we can maybe get a social media site that actually does its job is reassuring. And they have very strong content moderation stuff, so you can just block. If you block things, I think they actually go away. So, and they're really doubling down on content moderation. So maybe all those scam sites, they can weed those out and get rid of them, because Twitter certainly has no interest in doing that. And I don't think Facebook has any interest in doing that. So anyway, that's just to say, go to Blue Sky and let's all go there, because it's much nicer there. And the indie film people that I talked to on a personal account, they've all gone there and they all love it. Twitter is completely dead for screenwriting and things like that. And NBA Twitter is starting to go there, and it's much more pleasant. And yeah, so mostly just so I can find scores and I can figure out what's happening, so I can do things like the newsletter. And because the way Twitter is right now, I just can't even fathom being able to do the newsletter on a consistent basis using only that, because it's a nightmare over there. Anyway, so I believe that's it. Yeah, that's the show. I'm trying this out to do these little solo things. I'm going to try to get someone in here later this week to preview the gold ball games. Not entirely sure who I'm going to get to do that, but I'll get somebody, I think. And then we have a big season preview podcast we're scheduling. We're going to get a bunch of people in here, and we're going to do a draft of wins, and we're going to all pick teams to be on our team. It's going to be a whole thing. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. That's the show. This has been a production of MaineBasketballRankings.com, your source for the most comprehensive coverage of Maine high school basketball from Ashland to York and everywhere in between. This podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts and all of the places you don't. If you enjoy it, please leave a nice review, because it really does help out with algorithms. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Thanks for listening.